I'm saying as well. And it really speaks to me too. You know, people sometimes in a flattering way say, I've got such a solid business. That's what I want to talk about today. But, you know, to be truthful, I have some sections in my business that is solid, but I've also got legs that are less solid. And then I've got legs that are, you know, very sort of iffy. And then I also have legs that have gone down completely. So I talk from experience when I talk about what can give a solid leg and what not, because I've experienced it. Not all of my business is solid, and I can see where it's not solid, why it's not solid. And a lot of that has got to do with me, where I've perhaps not given enough support. But then also, we cannot control people. You know, things happen in people's lives. This business is like a train journey. We start the journey, and as we go along the journey, we get people who get onto the train with us. But along the road, some people do get off the train again. So not everybody is going to finish the journey. And that is why it's necessary that we keep growing and keep filling the bucket, because there are holes in the bucket. Now, what I'm going to share with you is definitely not my own wisdom. It's what I've learned over the years to a large extent from Charlie. So you can trust what I'm saying to you. Now, you may have been doing things slightly differently. And you may say, well, you know, this is not how I do things. If what you're doing works for you and gives you the results, do that. But certainly consider alternatives, possibilities. That is how we learn and grow. When we refuse to learn, we're going to stop growing as well. So, as Paul said, this is our second follow-up session. We've scheduled for 3 more, 24th of June. And I'm excited because AJ is getting to come into that one with some very, very valuable information. Again, like everything we're doing with the previous session and this one and the following sessions would be, in a sense, a repeat of what we've already done. But that is how we learn. We often don't learn by hearing something for the first time. So some of what we're going to do today will sound familiar to you. But, you know, they always say the biggest gap in the world is the gap between what we know and what we do. We may know certain things and not necessarily do it. And that is the idea of these follow-up sessions, that we just try and reinforce what I shared with you when we had the workshops, and for us to continually test ourselves against what we know and what we hear and what we learn. I was looking at my own business profile, used to be called a director profile, and I realized a lot of the things that I'm sharing are things that I need to give attention to. Now, I've purposely, for this first part of the year, not really focused on building new business. But that is what we all need to do. If we're on a certain level, to grow to the next level, we need to build new. My year actually starts now. And you may say, well, oh, that's not good. Well, there were reasons for that, very valid reasons. But the point is, even I realized that I've got to build new business and do it correctly. So what I want to do today is share 5 points with you. Now, it's very important that we succeed in all 5 areas. You know, it's like a car with the 4 wheels and the spare wheel. If we drive along and we get a flat tire, that can hold us up. It can even be dangerous if it's in a part of town that's not safe. But then you say, okay, it's fine, I've got a spare wheel, and you open the boot and the spare wheel is also flat. So you may say, well, I've got three perfectly well working wheels, but with a flat wheel and a flat spare, I'm not going anywhere. And it's the same with these 5 points. We need to be sure that on each of these, we are effective. We're doing the right things. So let us start, if we now speak about building a solid business with point number one, and that's something that I keep coming back to. We've got to make sure that our leadership is ethical and caring. You know, to such a large extent, when a team fails, it points to leadership. That's a difficult one to accept. None of us want to accept or admit to not being good enough and failing or having our team fail because of things we may have done or not done. But if we blame the team, we're probably going to be in a problematical situation all the time. You see, if we look at the wrong places for the answers we're going to find are going to be the wrong ones. And this is so foundational, this is so fundamental, that if our leadership is not ethical, now what does ethical mean? It means working to a certain standard, a social acceptably standard, things like honesty, things like being truthful, things like being fair. Unethical would be to be lying, to be untruthful, dishonest, unfair. Now, you will accept that that is so important, that our leadership is at the highest level of ethics. And then caring, it's simply people number one. Caring for people, not getting people into the business for what they can do for us, but what we can do for them. That is how we build the business, by building up other people. And we can't do that if we don't care about them or care for them. And I think at this point, we could remind ourselves of the golden rule, which says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. The opposite of that would be, don't do to other people that what you don't want be done to you. If we can just lift our leadership to that level where we do to people what we want done to us, and we don't do to people what we don't want done to us, then we're broadly in the right direction. The second point is we've got to focus on developing leaders. You know, many years ago, I was coming out of Lubumbashi in the Congo and sitting there in that airport. Now, I don't know if it's ever improved, but it's not the nicest airport to be in. But anyway, I was sitting there and reading a John Maxwell book. And he would say, if we just sponsor followers, followers can at best probably only sponsor more followers. But if we bring in leaders, leaders will bring in followers. Now, followers are necessary in our business. I'm not saying there's no place for them, but you need to bring in people who can also bring in other leaders, because leaders form the backbone of our business. Leaders are what make our businesses strong. You know, a follower is sometimes like a wheelbarrow. A wheelbarrow stands there, and if you don't push the wheelbarrow, it stands there. Now, we all have many distributors who are like that. If you don't push them, they don't go anywhere, and even if you push them, they don't go. And often the problem we create for ourselves is we spend so much time trying to push so many wheelbarrows that we have not got the time to develop self-starters, people who are goers, people who will not wait for us to do what needs to be done. So a big job for us is, as we sponsor. Now, we can't always say beforehand when we sponsor people who are going to be the leaders. But it's important to learn to identify leaders, and they're normally the people who phone you a lot. They come to training. When it comes to buying the kit, they come with the money, they make a name list, they go, they do, even if they make mistakes, they keep going. A follower, an average person, would normally try about 1.5 times, and if they failed, they give up. So we can see who are the people who are keen to move. Now, just on this point, I've seen it happen, and I know it happens. Sometimes you find people who are so keen on being number one, the top person in their team. They've got to be the leader, that they sort of feel threatened when leaders under them start developing. Now, that is something we need to overcome if that's a problem for us. I remember Hansie Cronje became PT long before I did. I wished I'd been PT sooner, but I never begrudged him that. I was happy about that. I've had people develop to far beyond me, 3, 4 diamonds in the business. Sadly, they're not around anymore. But you know, if you look at it correctly, the bigger the businesses that develop under you, the more you're going to benefit. So why keep people down just so that you can be the one catching all the shine? I'm not saying you do. I'm just saying that happens, and it's something to guard against. And as you develop people in your business, you might find leaders who are like that. And that is something to work on with those people, so that they realize that upcoming people are not a threat. Even if somebody qualifies and for a month or 2 or 3 makes you unqualified, that's fine. That's better having somebody coming up and qualifying than not. We just need to make sure that we do enough of the rest. So the next point is to think long term. You know, one of the biggest challenges people face when they come into our business is they expect too much too soon, but not enough in the long term. You see, people come in and they hear of somebody becoming a director in less than 6 months and an SD in a year, and they see the lifestyle changes. And while that happens and can happen, it's not going to happen for everybody. I personally grew very slowly in the business. I've never shot up to any level. But I've learned to be patient while working. Because the fact is, if we look at the graph, we always say to people, think in terms of 2 to 5 years plus. You must always stress that this is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's a business, and a business needs time to grow and develop and mature. So if we drew a graph and we said, this is income and this is time, a person on a normal income normally finds the income buys less and less as inflation and price rises catch them. I suppose you also have the terrific rise in fuel costs. Now that pushes up everything else. For farmers who use fertilizers, I'm not talking about Supergrow, the other fertilizers, the cost of that has gone up. Then when people retire, they normally have less than they had when they were working, which is tough. And then it's just a short way to the grave. Now, in your life, our graph goes something like this. Now, the dips may be deeper than what I'm showing you here. There will always be dips. I always think of Du and Fikile Mokoena, who were 5 diamonds. And then in the late 80s, with riots happening in South Africa, especially the area where they are, they dropped back to 1 ruby. Now, that is such a big dip, such a big drop that most people would just drop out because of that. But they became 5 diamond again. You see, so the dips shouldn't stop us. The dips are just there to something to go through. But what we must understand is that there's this first period in the business when people won't be earning a lot of money. And that is where we've got to be with them to encourage them and to tell them, hey, this is how it is. Don't worry, it's going to get better, and hold their hand. And then as they go into the second period, which may take a year or two or longer, where they now start bringing their Neolife part-time income level with their full-time income, they've now doubled their income. But this may have taken them 2 to 5 years, who knows? But the key is to go into this third phase, which is open-ended, where this gap keeps growing, where it keeps growing. And you know that there's no ceiling to what one can earn. But the point is, for people who don't think long-term, over here, they're so concerned with qualifying and getting up that they do things that hurt people just so that they can qualify, but that might cut off the long-term potential. So what I'm saying to us all is we must think long-term. We must not make decisions that would benefit us in the short term, but could harm us in the long term. Let's say you cheat somebody out of points or bonus or whatever now, because you need that money now or the qualification now. And because of that, that person drops out while they could have gone on to become a diamond director. So you see why I say it is so important to every decision we make regarding our business and our downlines must be with a view to the long term. The fourth point is we simply have to have enough people. You know, I see people trying to qualify and they just don't have enough people. Now, if a director qualifies at 4,000 points, now I'm not counting what you do personally, but if you had to rely on your team and you assumed everybody did at least 100 points, which if you look at your back office and your team performance, you'll see that is not the case. Probably in your organization, just like in mine, you'll find the average PV is like about 25 to 30. So if you have 100 people, or you need 4,000 people, no, sorry, I'm messing up, 4,000 points. But the average person does only about 25 PV. Think how many people you need to get to 4,000. If everybody on average did 100 points, you would need 40. Think about that. Now, if we don't have enough people on the level we are, striving for the next level is in itself demotivating, because you might just scrape through and then drop back. So it's like a house with a foundation. If the foundation is not there and strong enough, you can't build up. So point 4 is having enough people. And then, well, that obviously means, oh, I think I made a misspelling there, but that obviously means sponsoring more. But just sponsoring more in itself is not the answer. We've got to balance width with depth as we go about sponsoring. And this is the picture that I've shown you before. You all know that your first level, your width, gives you your profitability. This is a 1 ruby. Another leg would make you 2 ruby. 2 more legs would make you 3 ruby. And as you go up, you become more profitable because you earn more bonuses. But the depth is where your security is, where enough people develop, volumes of people develop, the deeper you go. And the more people there are, the more PV there will be. I mean, that is so logical. You don't get a lot of PV from your first level, maybe not even the second level. You've got to develop depth to get the numbers of people, the volume of people. It's a question of addition versus multiplication. Addition is sponsor one, sponsor another one, sponsor another one. Now you have 3, now you sponsor another one, you have 4, and so on. Multiplication means you sponsor the 3, And then you work with them to sponsor 3 each. Now you have 9 on the next level. Now, if you work with them to sponsor 3 each, that's 27. I think that would be 3rd level, which would give you a total of 39 people from the 3 you've sponsored. So do you see the power of multiplication versus mostly addition? Of course, we've got to add people. We've got to sponsor personally. But the key to sponsoring personally is to find people with whom we can go downline and develop depth. Now, how we do that, if that were you, and let's say you sponsored your 3, and now out of the 3, you identified B as the potential leader. B is keen, they come, they've got the name list, they've got everything. A and C, they might be doing a little. C might be like us, who took 3 years to get started. But now your job is to work with B to help B sponsor. Now let's say you help B sponsor 3 people, and you identified number 1 as the one that you want to work with most. Now you go along with B to help number 1 to start sponsoring, having some customers, learning. While you're doing that, B is having on-the-job training. Now you repeat that with B and 1, and you sponsor those 2 for 1, and maybe number 2 is the one that you work with. Same thing. Sponsor, go depth. Sponsor, go depth. Now, by the time you get to this level, you might not be taking B and 1 and 2 and 3 along, but you let them understand that your job is to build one taproot into B's business. And as B starts needing you less and less, B now stays behind and you work with 1. Eventually 1 is educated enough, they can go, you keep working with 2. Every time with the understanding of these people that what you are doing is working in their business and not trying to sabotage their business in any way, but helping them to build this depth. Now, what B learns in this process, he must now go and apply in the other legs. Find more legs in which to do that. Because building a taproot like this is not only going to add volume, but it is looking for leaders. You know, in my own business for many, many years, Hansie Cronje was the only person who started on 1st level and really became a leader. I've since had people who 1st level, who were sapphires and so on, but everybody else in my business who moved to world team or higher came out of the depth. Now, if you don't drive this, it might not happen. And it might happen that because this wasn't done properly, you could have missed potential diamond directors down here somewhere. So this is the process. The problem with this is it takes a lot of hard work. It's time consuming. You don't have necessarily the quick results and the quick movement that people so want. But I would rather build a solid leg than have a lot of legs around me that are there or they're not there. And if they do nothing, then nothing happens. So adding people to your team is very important. You've got to have your 1st levels, but from your 1st levels, you've got to develop depth. If you can do this in 6 legs, and you have 6 legs that are very, very strong, that when the month starts, you don't have to even think if they're going to qualify or not. You'd be a qualified for Ruby director even without thinking about it. But without enough people, without the volumes of people, that is all, it's always going to be shaky. One month you qualify, the next month you you miss a leg or two and you drop. And that is very demotivating. So this is just a visual of the power of depth. The deeper you go, the more people come in. So it is so important to help those people start sponsoring. And you can see in this example, this one sponsored, this one didn't, this one did. But that is how it is. Not everybody will, but as you go down, you want to develop this kind of structure. Structure is the key to having a solid business. A weak structure, weak business. Strong structure, big structure, strong business. So to summarize, ethical, caring leadership. And you know, this is where personal development becomes so relevant to us as leaders. We are the ones who set the tone in our teams. We are the ones who create the atmosphere. Is there trust? Is there love? Is there caring? Do people feel comfortable with us? Or do they want to run away from us? You know, a test of leadership is to look behind you and to see who's following you, or perhaps who's stopped following you. I know of leaders who've lost big teams, and that is never something you want to happen to you. So we've got this responsibility to personally grow from where we are. Now, if you've stagnated or you've gone down, that's a sign that there needs to be personal development. Personal development leads it's like the horse that pulls the cart. If there's no personal development, there will be little progress, little upward movement. Because we have, as leaders, we have got to have the credibility and the ability so that people look up to us and they believe in us and they would like to follow us. Then develop leaders. Think long-term in the process. Never do anything in the short term that will hurt your business in the long term. I've seen that happen so often. That's why we've lost big teams, like 3-diamond teams, 4-diamond teams, president's team, because people made decisions that suited them for the moment, that benefited them for the moment, but in the long term cost them the business. And then have enough people, I've spoken about that, and do that by balancing width and depth. So those 5 points, in my opinion, are the 5 things that we need to work on all the time. And I say we because it includes me. I've got to work on the quality of my leadership. I've got to develop more leadership. I've got to constantly remind myself, is this the right decision for the long term? I know I haven't got enough people to move up. I need that. And the only way to do that is to build a business with enough width, but then also enough depth. So I hope these challenge you and help you to rethink where you are and what you're doing. My purpose of touching on this is not to come down hard on anybody, but because I want everybody in the team. If I say the team, I mean in Neolife, not just my own team. I want everybody to really move up, to reach towards our full potential, and to make Neolife so strong that that people could never utter a word against Neolife, that people will flock to Neolife. But that begins with us. So thank you for taking the time to be in my company this morning, and thank you, Paul, for facilitating this. I remind you of our next date on the 24th when AJ comes in, and then we'll have 2 more sessions in July. If there's a need for repeating this or doing more of this, I'm always willing. I'm so happy that we have this facility through Zoom to share, because these days it's not so easy to be there in person. But I am very happy that you have come along. And I hope that what we did this morning would be meaningful. And I wish the best for you, because together we will each accomplish more. So thank you, and God bless you. If you have any personal questions, you can pass it to me through Paul. I don't see anything now. So again, just thank you, and God bless. Goodbye.
Thank you so much, Mike. We really appreciate your session. It's a good reminder of the things that we spoke during the director's workshop. And I'm sure that we are all here. We are about 60 of us from the 2 countries, that is Kenya and Uganda. We'll be able to put some of these things into practice as we build our business. And we thank you, Mike, for the thoughts, and seeing it very important for us to have this meeting as well, because you personally planted and brought the thoughts to us that we can be able to do a meeting and continue to catch up, because it's just reminding each other the things that are valuable that will be able to help us to build our business. And listening from Mike, somebody who has a lot of experience in building the business, I think that is the best place for us to be. So let's take it, let's go out there. Our sponsoring is not where it is. It's fair, but we can use these tips to be able to improve it, and more important, to be able to convert these people. Because when we look at our conversion, they are a bit slow. They're quite slow. The distributors that are stepping up to manager, it's not where it's supposed to be. Those who are stepping up to a senior manager, executive, able to be a stable business. So I want to thank you so much. I'm looking forward to seeing you on the 24th of June. And please make sure all your downline directors, they are coming into this kind of meeting, so that they can be able to get the information that we are all getting, and so that we can be able to build the depth that Mike is speaking about. So thank you so much. Have a lovely day. For the distributors in Kenya, remember tomorrow we have our media rally at KICC. Let's come early. It's an exciting day. You saw from the handover, from the message I sent, we are going out big this time. We are going to have an outside MC. We know this guy called Dr. Ofweneke is going to be our MC tomorrow. And we have a band that is also going to be entertaining us and keeping the excitement up there. So bring people early so that we can be able to kick off that meeting. So thank you so much. Have a lovely day, and God bless you all. Bye-bye. Thank you, Mike. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Paul.